Well, hello and welcome to this next gathering of Calling Up from the Wilderness. My name is Timothy Miller, and I'm joined, as always, by my most fabulous friend, Derek
Derek
Wilson.
Wilson.
I thought I'd chip in just in case you forgot your own name. It's been a long weekend with
I
Easter.
didn't know you
You know,
wanted me to say it. This is your introduction. I'm silent. I'm the face of this operation, and you're the voice. That's how it's always worked. That's how it'll continue to work. That's why we're so successful.
and why we've confused so many women along the way. But it's really, really good to be with you. And last week we took a slight detour, a trail from our usual, which has been we decided to spend a few weeks in and around the story of Abram or Abraham. And to last week we took a little detour, doing a bit of thinking about Easter. And as always, please do feedback your comments or questions. We love to engage with those. We're working towards a new structure, which we'll roll out probably closer to the summertime, which will give us a chance to kind of do 3 weeks where we're engaging with passages. And then every fourth week, we'll be looking back at kind of questions and comments from yourselves. So we're going to build this up a little bit more into a kind of a wider conversation, which will include anything that you're coming up with, that's striking you, that's out at you, whether it's the things that we've said or the passage itself. The other thing we'll be doing in the coming months as well is starting to invite some other voices to join in with us, to add in kind of a third perspective, sometimes maybe a fourth. We have no idea how it's all, but looking forward to having kind of more voices in the conversation. To one of the things that although we currently live across the world from each other and in different contexts, Derek and I do bring a large and a very similar experience in our own kind of faith journeys, and so we want to make sure that our kind of conversations are going broader than just ourselves, and so hopefully that you'll find those times and those opportunities as enriching as I know we will. So happy Easter tide to you all. We are currently back in the season of saying, Alleluia, Christ is risen. And although we're not looking to drag Jesus into everything in the Old Testament, I'm sure he will pop his head in and out now that he's out of the tomb. So let's hold ourselves to this moment of silence, bring space. We give our time to this discussion as an opportunity for Scripture to read itself to us, that we may of who God is, more of what God is calling us to, and opportunities to perhaps see different ways to be in the world together. So we'll invite Derek to read for us our first reading from Genesis 18.
Genesis chapter 18, verses 1 to 15. And the Lord appeared to him by the oaks of Mamre, as he sat at the door of his tent in the heat of the day. He lifted up his eyes and looked, and behold, 3 men were standing in front of him. When he saw them, he ran from the tent door to meet them and bowed himself to the earth and said, O Lord, if I have found favor in your sight, do not pass by your servant. Let a little water be brought, and wash your feet, and rest yourselves under the tree, while I bring a morsel of bread, that you may refresh yourselves, and after that you may pass on, since you have come to your servant. So they said, Do as you have said. And Abraham went quickly to the tent to Sarah and said, Quick, 3 seahs of fine flour, knead it and make cakes. And Abraham ran to the herd and took a calf, tender and good, and gave it to a young man, who prepared it quickly. Then he took curds of milk and the calf that had been prepared and set it before them. And he stood by them under the tree while they ate. They said to him, Where is Sarah your wife? And he said, She is in the tent. The Lord said, I will surely return to you about this time next year, and Sarah your wife shall have a son. and Sarah was listening at the tent door behind him. Now Abraham and Sarah were old, advanced in years. The way of women had ceased to be with Sarah. So Sarah laughed to herself, saying, After I am worn out and my Lord is old, shall I have pleasure? The Lord said to Abraham, Why did Sarah laugh and say, Shall I indeed bear a child, now that I am old? Is anything too hard for the Lord? At the appointed time I will return to you about this time next year, and Sarah shall have a son. But Sarah denied it, saying, I did not laugh, for she was afraid. He said, No, but you did.
And the Lord appeared to him by the oaks of Mamre. And as he sat at the door of his tent in the heat of the day, he lifted up his eyes and looked. 3 men were standing in front of him. When he saw them, he ran from the tent door to meet them and bowed himself to the earth and said, O Lord, if I have found favor in your sight, do not pass by your servant. Let a little water be brought and wash your feet, and rest yourselves under the tree, while I bring a morsel of bread, that you may refresh yourselves. And after that you may pass on, since you have come to your servant. So they said, Do as you have said. And Abraham went quickly into the tent to Sarah and said, Quick, 3 seahs of fine flour, knead it and make cakes. And Abraham ran to the herd and took a calf, tender and good, and gave it to a young man who prepared it quickly. Then he took curds and milk and the calf that he had prepared and set it before them, and he stood by them under the tree while they ate. Where is Sarah, your wife? And he said, She is in the tent. The Lord said, I will surely return to you about this time next year, and Sarah, your wife, shall have a son. And Sarah was listening at the tent door behind him. Now Abraham and Sarah were old, advanced in years. The way of women had ceased to be with Sarah. So Sarah laughed to herself, saying, After I am worn out and my Lord is old, pleasure? The Lord said to Abraham, Why did Sarah laugh and say, Shall I indeed bear a child now that I am old? For the Lord, at the appointed time I will return to you about this time next year, and Sarah shall have a son. But Sarah denied it, saying, I did not laugh, for she was afraid. He said, No, but you did laugh. right, Derek, what word or phrase has jumped out to you as we were reading our passage today?
Um, well, this isn't like it only jumped out at me because I absolutely love it. But I did not laugh when she was afraid. He said, "No, but you did laugh." The sassy angel, right? Just like, no, you did laugh. It is. I just love it. Like I'm replaying all the things in my head, like a TV show in my head, and how that would look, and that would be like the
Yeah.
comic part.
Yeah.
I love that. I also love like how long are these quick visits? Like stop here for some water. Oh yeah, my wife will go make some bread, and oh yeah, we'll just go butcher that calf and cook it for you and all that. Like it's
Yeah.
not a 15-minute process. Like I can't imagine. It's a couple hour. So, like,
Yeah.
I love that. Like time is just
Yeah.
like we're just so quick now.
Mm,
It's like pop in,
mm.
say hi.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then yeah,
Yeah.
that
Definitely.
the servant. I'm gonna skip the easy one where it was like, is anything too old for God? Because I feel like that's been hit a lot. Oh Lord, if I found favor in your sight, do not pass your servant. I
Mm,
like that.
yeah. Mm, yeah. I was going to say the thing that kind of jumped out at me was the very kind of beginning. That the point I hadn't noticed that he like as he meets them he bows down, he bows himself to the earth and says, "Oh Lord." It's a
Yeah.
really it it's yeah. Well, we'll get into it in our
Yeah.
in our conversation, but that was certainly the part that jumped out at me.
Yeah.
Any questions or thoughts you have about the passage that you want to drop as the kind of starting point or for us?
I like to talk about hospitality and what that looks like.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah, yeah.
and then time, like what time it looks like for us now. Um, I
Yeah.
there's a
I think
comedian I listen to. I'm gonna say it now so it doesn't take up part of our 20 minutes later.
yeah.
Um, I'm gonna skirt the rules a little bit. Um, but there was a comedian and he was talking about the difference of when he grew up that when someone knocked at the door, it was like a joyous occasion. Like your mom had these desserts set aside for when company was over. You go to the door and it'd be like your aunt. You'd be like, "What are you doing?" It's like I was just in the neighborhood. Thought I'd stop by and see the kids. Oh, come
Yeah.
on in. And you sat down and
Mm,
phone rings and it's like,
mm,
"Don't answer it." Your dad would be like, "Don't answer it. We've got company." And it was like a really exciting
mm,
kind of time. And now there's a knock at the door, and like everyone hits the deck and it's like, who could it be? Who did you invite over? Who do we know this person? Get down, get down. Maybe they'll pretend no one's home. Like it's just a complete reversal, right? And
mm,
this passage screams that to me that it's completely different now than it
mm,
used to be. And I think with the technology now we're more connected and yet more distant than we've ever been. Um,
mm. Yeah.
So that's what this kind of screams out to me. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, you go.
Cool. Well, yeah, I think very similarly, the whole idea of hospitality is such a fascinating one, particularly in this case, in the same way where we see with the way the story unfolds, the hospitality becomes an invitation to God, and then it becomes an opportunity to work in the context God now finds God's self in. If you
Yeah.
so,
You're
I'm gonna start the
you
timer.
keep freezing a little bit, so if you say something
Like
important and it freezes, I may get you to repeat what you said. I doubt
I didn't
that'll
say anything
happen. Like I
important there.
doubt you'll say anything too important that we need to get you to repeat it. But just in case,
Just
just in case. Yeah, you're freezing again. Like it's weird.
I'll pretend.
Oh, but
Um, well, this might be one that needs a bit more editing than usual. So
yeah. Well, yeah. Well, we'll see. Maybe we'll just let it go. Um,
yeah.
Yeah.
So
Okay. So
so
set the timer.
let's start with that. Yeah, yeah, got it. Let's kick it off and start with the very beginning, which seems a very appropriate place to start. We've
Yeah.
got Abraham, and it's just the middle of the day. Old man Abraham sitting in a tent, watching to see if anybody comes by in the middle of the day because it's so hot out.
Yeah. Yeah. Like he's looking for opportunities to be hospitable, right? Like it's not just
Yeah,
something that comes on him and it's a burden, but
yeah,
he's looking for it. And from what I understand about hos, hospitality, not hostility, hospitality in this day is um, that if you're walking by and you saw someone, it was your job to offer them food and refreshment or a place to stay if they needed it. If they rejected it, it was like a slight against you and could be means for war if you didn't offer it and they didn't take it. And then after you gave them your finest stuff, they were supposed to say a blessing or a something prosperous would happen to your family as they departed. As a thank you, you weren't supposed to take money from them or anything. Um, so yeah, like he's there looking for ways to be hospitable to anyone coming by. Like he's just there waiting. He's just yeah. You go. People are gonna
I was
start
just
thinking your
wondering if
name
you
is
could take
Hugo because I keep just going. You go. You go.
it. Yeah. What do you got? Um,
You go.
yeah, I think what's interesting is as well is like there is this whole cultural side of hospitality, which, as you said at the beginning in your preface, was is that like things have obviously changed. Like the irony of the modern world is that we have more things to make our time more efficient, and yet we have less time to do the things that are important to us or to other people. Whereas with Abraham in this time, he's literally, even now, the orientation of his life years in his older years is that of hospitality. He knows he's got, they've got he knows they've got grain in the storage. He knows he's got calves in the field.
Mhm.
So if anybody's traveling by, he knows he's got the ability to serve. um and I think it's interesting because like, at least for myself, I spend a lot of time and have spent a lot of time in my life thinking, oh, when I have this sorted out, then I know then I'll be able to be more helpful to, X person. Or, if once things, settle down with this, or we have more money in the bank, or, and I'm always making excuses for why I can't be as generous as I tell myself I want to be. But the orientation of my life continues not to be that of generous hospitality, as we see with Abraham.
It's the once I win the lottery, then I will give the money to the church and help out all these things. Well, if you're not
Yeah,
doing it now, you probably won't later.
yeah, yeah,
Right?
yeah, yeah. And I think the other thing too that as you brought up too, we do have a reflection into the New Testament here, where Jesus sends his disciples out and he says, when you enter a town, when somebody invites you in, you say, "Peace be with this house." And let your peace rest there. And if there is not the hospitality, is, kick the dust off your feet when you leave that place, and literally leave that place in your dust.
Yeah.
And, and it's interesting, as you say, like, that's just such a cultural thing that time, that even with, between, I don't know how many years were between Abraham and Jesus, because that's just not the way my brain works. But in between that time, still culturally, there was this real emphasis on hospitality. And what's interesting, hospitality here, is like the person offering hospitality, or at least the way Abraham offers it, it comes from a place of humility. Like he as we say, he bows himself to the earth and says, "If I have found favor in your sight, do not pass by your servant, but let me serve you." And there's something about, actually, the way that we use hospitality as a place of power. So hospitality is the person who has something everybody else, and that's how like missions trips often have been.
Mhm.
The ones I was a part of were often kind of around that framework. It's like, here we are, we have all this stuff, we know what's good, kind of almost like the empires when they when they went out to um to conquer new lands, right? And
Yeah.
and you're like, oh, these people who don't have as much as I do, I'm going to be so generous and hospitable and give. But actually the hospitality is the humility who creates the space for you to be served, not the person who's in power to show you everything that they have.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And I, as you're saying this, I'm getting hit because I do not like I like hospitality and I like going to people's houses. I don't like it unannounced. I don't like people just stopping by and just like, hey, how's it going? Because I'm usually not wearing pants and I'm I'm doing something out, like I'm watching TV or doing something. Yeah, I hate pants. I hate socks. I don't wear them at home unless I have to. I think there's more
So
out.
anyone who's planning a pop by after COVID, to Derek, you've been
Yeah,
fair warned.
yeah. Well, I gotta run and go put on pants before I answer the door, which is just a big hassle. Um,
You need to get
I,
one of those
and I
old
don't like
doors. I
what?
was gonna say you need to get that have like the top opens and not the bottom at the same time, so you can open it up, and from the waist up, everyone sees you. It's good, right?
That's so smart. Okay.
Sorry, I digress. I completely digressed.
No,
Sorry, get
no,
back to you.
it's okay. You're freezing too, so pretty much your face was just like this for a little bit. But we got the gist. But I also don't like stopping by people's houses without announcing. I will send a text. I will do something. I will schedule a time or something. But I will even in Aston, where we lived, where everyone's quite comfortable and together and home. I would always do it. Like it's the not wanting to be an inconvenience, shall we say, to people, that holds us
Yeah,
back. And I think
yeah,
and I think that's just recent. Like back in the day, you would hear about people stopping by all the time to other
mm,
homesteads and stuff to visit. Um, so in that
yeah,
humility, like you're talking about, I don't have that humility. I've got that pride that I don't want to be
mhm,
the inconvenience or I don't want to be inconvenienced by someone. And I don't have that humility of the hospitality unless it's within my framework, right? Like unless it's
yeah,
this is how I want my hospitality to be. Don't ask me to
mm,
do this out here. This is where I'm comfortable
mm,
being a host or an invitee.
yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah.
And that goes to, I think, the irony of like what COVID has kind of on people is like where we finally have time to see people and we're not allowed to, you know, like how many people are saving 3 hours a day from commuting in and out of work that they could pop around to see a neighbor or a family member or some, or it's like, you work from home, go spend a long weekend with your parents, or grandparents, or and like some
Yeah.
is, if you do need to do any work, you can do it while you're there. And the irony of it, the whole situation is that we've got time and space that we can't use right now in that way, even, right? And but I think the that kind of that underpinning question, as you were saying, is like, is there a priority and an orientation of it first? Because if it's not there, it doesn't matter what the circumstances are, it will never be a priority and an orientation.
Mm, yeah. Uh, when I when we were going to talk about this a couple weeks ago, I started looking at a book, and I was trying to find it, but I can't remember what it was. But the lady, she's her book is about the hospitality that she has, and she talks about how it's very intentional. Like her whole mindset is towards hospitality. That Um, if you're coming over, you are going to be loved on, you're going to be taken care of, but you're also going to pitch in. Like if there's clothes on the table, go fold them. If there's dishes to be done, go do them or put it in the dishwasher or something. Like you are part of the family. Um, but it was like some one of her stories was like there was a neighbor that um, kind of kept to himself and didn't like people stopping by, and all the other neighbors were worried about him because he had a big dog, and she intentionally went over and helped him and actually went looking for the dog, and they became close friends and helped out and stuff like that. He was like selling heroin out of his house and got arrested and stuff. But she was like, and even in that, like, how do I make it hospital or hospitable for the neighbors that are coming over and now want to discuss this and find that like how do I gear my interactions there towards them. And anyway, it was quite interesting. Wish I could remember the book. Maybe I'll put it in the link to this video. I only
Mhm.
read like the first chapter, so it may get right crappy after that. Who knows? But it it really hit me that my life is so geared against not hospitality unless I'm forced to, like unless there's a need, unless there's something that I can do, and then it's get it done and then out, right? Like if I stop by your house to drop
Yeah.
off something, it's come in, quick talk, how's it going? Yeah, I wish we could be meeting together too, and I'm out. Like that, like that's about it, right? Like it's
Yeah.
it's it's an inconvenience
Mhm.
just so I can go home and like not do anything. Like that's my goal is to go home and not do anything. And my interactions with
Mhm.
people is just preventing me from doing that, which is totally different. I mean, Abraham didn't have TV, like he didn't have Netflix, so I feel like he would be a little less hospitable if he was binge watching, you know, Brooklyn Nine Nine or something. Um, but
Yeah.
it's just the way it is, right? Like
Mhm.
we are so maybe it's a Canadian thing too, but we are so inclined to not be in positions to people, like not to be a burden to
Mhm.
someone that we would rather not.
Yeah.
We would rather sacrifice that um, coming together and chit chatting, our deep
Mhm.
um, what's the word I'm looking for? Our deep relationship with each other than not
Mhm.
be an inconvenience, right? I'll see you on Sunday.
Yeah.
We might go out for lunch afterwards or some kind of events, but not day to day.
Yeah. And I think the irony of that as well is that we haven't created opportunities for our to see those as spaces of relationship. So like in your mind, like in my mind, I'd be like, oh, I can't pop by because if they're busy doing something, then they won't tell me they're busy doing something because they'll feel obligated to have me because I've just popped round.
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, and then they'll let me in and then they'll resent me for having come by because they're not getting done the thing that they need to get done or wanted to. And we don't have that space where we could like where it's like, where somebody could pop by and you could be like, I would love to have you in right now, but I am actually in the middle of something. Can we set up a time? We fill in all that space with our own um I guess presumptions about what may or may not be going on. And oftentimes, as you say, because it's to feed our own hopes or plans for what we want to do or are planning for ourselves. um and
Or
I
even or even I would say not wanting someone to see the real us, right? Like I don't want you to see my messy house. I don't want you to see, kids acting up or stuff like this. Like I'd rather have everything perfect so that you see me as my best version, not truly who I am. Kind of like a social media, right? Like Instagram or Facebook. I don't post the real things going on. I post my best life so that you can compare your best life to my best life.
Yeah. Did you ever see that older Bruce Willis film Surrogates? Did you ever see that one?
No, I
Yeah,
don't think so.
it popped up on a thing, and I play kind of random sci-fi stuff while I'm making dinner and doing dishes because Zaria and Megan don't quite appreciate the low class of film. And like, but the premise of the film is that like a guy came up with computer systems by which you get a robotic surrogate for your experiences, so you never have to leave the safety and comfort of your own home. This robot body does it all for you. And the thing is that people start to see each other only in the presentations of their surrogates, that are, that have, features and whatever it might be. And the irony is that the guy who created the program is the guy who then is also the this is a spoiler alert, so it's like a
Okay.
20-year-old film, so I feel okay saying it. But the guy who's actually like the main protagonist in it, he's the one who actually started the whole thing and realizes that what he's lost through what he had hoped to create kind of a more safe society for people, and what
Mhm.
he'd actually done was stop people from being humans together, and all of their interactions were being mediated through the computer systems of the and then the robotic bodies of the surrogates. And I thought it was just a really interesting, that interesting thing, as you're talking about, like, the characters in that are really pushing back against being themselves, even outside of in their own homes with their own family members,
Mhm.
because their whole experiences of the world are through those robots, kind of thing.
Hmm. That sounds good. Like I'm thinking of other movies that are close to that, but not quite that. That seems
Mhm.
really good. And it makes me think of Brooksy Cave, if I'm saying that right. He's the pastor of the Meeting House down in Southern Ontario. But he posted a thing where it was like social. We present. Now I'm kind of butchering this quote, but it's we present a fake self to social media on Instagram and Facebook and that for attention and love. So we are never fully known and never fully loved in that way because they all love the fake you, the partial you, and not the true you. Um, yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, from hospitality to social media, we just cover everything, eh? Full circle. Full circle.
It's all contemporary here.
Yeah.
But I
Is
think
this
like
a is this a Scott Francis class? Because I don't know what's happening and where we're going. Love you, Scott Francis, if you're watching this.
but but I think what was interesting, obviously, is like going back to one of your earlier comments about things that jumped out at you, is this interaction between one character and Sarah. And it's like you've got this presentation, as you say, of like Sarah, who she believes herself to be, who she understands herself to be, who she's presenting herself as,
Yeah.
and that doesn't align with the promises that God has given, the covenant that God has made to Abraham and to Sarah, because the promise was for their line, right? And even when she's faced with like a promise of that fulfillment of that, she still laughs because that's not who she believes and understands herself to be. And there's a real, like, beauty about the way that, as you say, like, there's this kind of like tongue in cheek, no, you did laugh, like,
Yeah.
and anyone who's ever done any youth work, or any work with children, you have those moments where, like, I didn't do that. You're like, yes, you did.
Yeah, you
Right.
did. Yeah. Um,
But
yeah, so
yeah.
Sarah's even her own understanding of herself isn't correct. Like
Yeah.
her her view of herself is based like normally like it should be on circumstances and age. Like she's beyond the years to be a woman or whatever is said. So it's gonna be impossible. And yet her idea of herself, based on everything she knows and all her experiences, is still incomplete. until the Lord comes and says, next year you're going to have a kid.
Yeah.
Your
And I think
husband's going to
like
try to kill that child, but you're going to have a kid.
spoiler alert. Yeah.
Spoiler alert. Yeah.
But like, but I think like one of the things that's really difficult with faith and stuff like that, and with what we're called to in the church, is like this place of um by which we're actually asked to live vulnerably and openly with people, not just the people that we choose, who are our family and our friends, but the people who respond to the call of Jesus. And so there's something about like the way that we see in this too, that actually it's sometimes the people outside of our circles that also need to be given the space to speak some sense of kind of truth and discernment for us as well. Bigger picture of the body to which we belong, the family to which we belong, and also to that picture of like what God, the kind of the complexity of who we are actually can never be fully realized with just ourselves, or with just ourselves and another person. It actually, that we learn new things about ourselves all the time because of different people being a part of our lives, and being a part of those conversations. And I think, it's really interesting that actually, yes, obviously or not obviously, but, the story continues that the angel who's speaking is the Lord, is God's self here. But actually there's something about the way that like there's that kind of space that somebody else outside of this kind of complete bubble of Abraham and Sarah and their families actually comes in and says something that actually brings some kind of to a circumstance that they've kind of just settled into as well. If that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, and it brings to mind like how like it's quite popular right now to do like meditations or yoga or stuff like that that um, focuses on oneself, like bettering oneself in that, and then you find a group of the same kind of people that are doing the same thing, right? Like, but there's not a lot of things where it's bettering my bettering oneself in relation to how I'm treating or helping other people, right? Like, I can understand what I'm saying. Like, it's
Yeah.
not it's it's very individual based. Um, and if it is with a group, it's always what can I do for that group? What can I do to that group? And never what can we as a group learn and come together with. Unless it's like a group project in school, but we all know there's like two
Yeah.
people in that group that are actually going to do stuff. Um, so
Yeah. Well, that's our 20 minutes,
okay,
and then some, as we always do. Um, just close in a moment of I'll say a prayer to close us off, and it's been good to be with you this Easter week. Let's pray. Holy God, we give you thanks that there is a truth about ourselves beyond what we even believe and know and understand. That there's something of the way that you love us and that you call us into relationship, not only with you, but with the rest of our brothers and sisters with whom we share this planet. We'd be open to see our community and see our families beyond the boundaries that we so clearly draw. And that we would be open, as with Abraham, to be people of hospitality, to create opportunities of life and relationship, to carve those out of what we see as the busyness and importance of our lives, that we may truly be a people who bring a new level of life to each other and to this world. Amen.
oh man. Well, thanks for joining us. And please comment on what you want to see. I know myself, like I never want to do that because I'm like they actually don't want to know my opinion, but we really do. We really want to know what you think, kind of passages you want to look at, And I'll say this: if you do that and you like private message or something your address, I will send you a personal thank you card for doing that. That is my
There you
promise
go.
to you. Um,
Promises
Jericho
have
for
been
the
made.
cent, just in case we get more. I don't want to be that hospitable and get everyone card. I just, fit within my box.
That's right.
Um,
That's right. I've got time. I've got time for 10.
10. I got time for 10. So yeah, do that. And yeah, thank you for joining us. We appreciate it. We enjoy doing it. Blessings. And
Take
I think
care.
toodles.